Um, Hello everybody. I just have a friend, Machine Monkey. I watched his video on his testimony of drug use and what happened to him. But I just wanted to share with him because it brought some stuff to that had happened to me. Um, but I want to share with you some stories um, that I not be here either if it hadn't been of God, the grace of God, because of all the lessons I had to learn. Not God was not trying to be mean, but these lessons people have to learn. It's just like a kid. The kid has to learn it. I mean, they have to do it, and then do it over and over until finally it hits them in the head. But my dad died when I was 7. He was an alcoholic, but he wasn't drinking when he died because he died in a car accident. Um, and he'd abused my mom. He wasn't like that when he was sober, but he abused my mom. And I remember I must have been pretty young because I remember seeing him do it. But that didn't make me hate him. I don't hate him to this day. How can you hate your father? But he came by one day, and like I've said before, my mom had like premonitions and stuff like that. He wanted us to go with him. There were 6 of us, or 4 of us that were his. Uh, but wanted us to go with him to help these other kids that he knew by who he worked for. It was their kids. My dad was a horticulturist. Um, and my mom said no, they can't go. That very same day, there was a car accident, and I don't know. My dad was laying in the seat, or it was just kind of a weird thing because my grandfather is the one that went to the accident because he was um, he did all sorts of stuff. So he worked for an ambulance and stuff like that. But there were 7 kids that were in the car, and they were all dead. They all died, along with my father. But yeah, and he was an alcoholic. And he'd been in 2 wars, World War II and the Korean War. And he comes home, gets in a car accident. And, it's very hard. Then my poor mom, she suffered from mental illness. A lot of it was panic. I think panic attack would be a lot of it. And then later became depression and stuff like that. But she was 59 when she died. My dad was 46. Um, but I remember my mom, and she had shock treatments. That was back in the day, and I heard a lot about them. They use them today, but not as often as they did back then. I remember my mom didn't want to go to the hospital. They were dragging her. I remember seeing all this stuff, dragging her out and stuff like that. And she was screaming, "I don't want to go. I don't want to go." And they took us to see her. This was, in a big city, and we couldn't go in to see her. But and I mean, she was on the top floor. How in the heck do we see her? It's beyond me. But we had to stay outside and look up and wave to her and stuff like that because we couldn't see her. And I remember her being upset. Her fear was dying of cancer or this or that. Her wringing her hands, her running, just afraid, waking up my stepdad every all the time. Um, People might laugh at that, and they may say a lot of things about those people that are mentally ill, but unless you go through it, you're never going to know it. But you know what? My mom was afraid of dying. My mom was afraid she had cancer. I was afraid she was going to have a heart attack, stroke, or something like that. Constant fear. Um, but one night, I was in my, I was probably in my mid-30s. I was watching Roseanne on TV. They had called in the middle of the night. And it's a good thing my then husband was there because I got a call from my sister-in-law saying my mom had stopped breathing and, need to come up there. And they lived about 100 and some miles away. And this was like 9, 10 o'clock. I couldn't believe it. She was 59, 2 weeks from being 60. But the way they described her when she died, I seen her when in the hospital after the fact, because we got to go in and see her. But the way they described the way she died, she was sitting in a chair watching 911 or emergency 911 or something like that. She says, "It's it. This is it." And stood up, fell to the floor. But by the grace of God, she didn't suffer. She just looked up and smiled and closed her eyes. They couldn't wake her up again. That was in the early 90s when she passed away. So my siblings were it. I had five relatives die within 2 years in that span of time. I had an aunt die. I first started with a 16-year-old cousin and cerebral palsy. Uh, then my grandmother's sister died. This was a year before my mom died. Then my mom passed away. Then right after my mom was my uncle, which is his wife that passed away before my mom did. Then my stepdad my grandmother passed away, and then my stepdad passed away. Within 2 years, that's how many people I lost. My grandmother was a year almost to the day that my mom passed. and that was my mother's mom. But my story is very weird because when I was 16, I had anxiety issue really bad, and every time people would pass away, it would get worse. I've had stayed in Aunt's house, and for to take care of her grandkids, and I come home, and 1 week later, she was dead. She just died the same way my mom did, and I just seen her a week before. She was okay. And I was 16 years old, and that really hit me. So I started getting those panic attacks, and I had them for a long time. And there's nothing ever that you could ever imagine until this day what it is like to have panic attacks and be fearful. That's not because I didn't believe in God, because I always did, but never really thought of it as being what was being taught to me. But this fear, the panic attacks lasted for a long time. And a lot of times what I would do is, they call plates in there, get out and walk. That's what I would do, is walk all the time. And, you have people take the bull by the horns, this and that. You think it's that easy? No. I mean, my mom, it's weird. My mom prayed for me one night. I was laying on the couch, and I said, Mom, you know, I said, I had the strangest feeling from my feet all the way up to my head, a kind of like warm feeling. She looked at me very weird, and she says, I just prayed for you. But like I say, there's a lot of things in my story and my life experiences. Um, I went to a psychiatric hospital because of my attacks, uh, and met a girl or a woman, but you know, um, that befriended me. That's the way it's always been in my life. That befriended me and stuff, and would always come talk to me. We would always hang out in the hospital. Uh, but her story was she was raped when she was 9 years old by a friend of his family, and tried to commit suicide. And her family was Mormon too. Um, but she liked me because I made her laugh. She liked talking with me because I tried to make things a little bit brighter. But she also helped me because uh, we'll go to the story when, um, I lived in a trailer in those days. Um, I had 2 kids. Uh, we exchanged phone numbers, and she called me up all the time, just to talk. And she did that until I don't know how many years it was, probably a year or two. And then she didn't, or she called, her mother called me. And we lived in a house. This was in the Reagan years. We lived in a house in town, and her mother calls me up and says, "Can you talk to her?" And she moved to Kentucky, but her mother called me up from Kentucky and wanted me to talk to her. And I talked to her, and we used to write each other. But after that, after a while, I didn't hear from her. I still think about her to this day. I've seen death staring me in the face a few times. One time, if I'd had abortions like everybody else does, I probably wouldn't have any kids because both my children were very hard. My last child, my youngest daughter, me and her almost died. And if it hadn't been for God, because this was in the 70s, and hemorrhaging and all that stuff, my daughter was drowning in the blood and go to the hospital. I mean, I prayed, and I looked at my oldest daughter, who was 2 years old, prayed that God wouldn't take me away from her. She needed her mother, and I'd get tired, so I started laying down, and then so they don't lay down, stay awake. And I did that all the way through, and this was probably about 4 freaking hours. Uh, Sitting there, I had to walk down because there was a snowstorm. Walk down to where my ex-husband was, my husband at that time, digging the car out, told him we need to go. I called my grandparents and stuff like that, and we passed them as they were going to my house. I felt bad because I had to call them and say, "I'm sorry," he says, "as long as you got it there." Um, but I get in the hospital, and all they do is start asking questions about religion, this and that, and the other thing. And doctor walks in, my ex-husband, or my husband at the time, said my face was turning colors. Doctor walks in, put oxygen on there. I mean, that's how stupid they were. And it took a while even before I could go in and have the cesarean, but I kept praying. And like I say, the spirit was telling me to stay awake. And as they were rolling me into the operating room, the old anesthesiologist was like my grandfather. But in my head, there was the voice saying, "You can go to sleep now." And I woke up, and my youngest daughter, she weighed 4 pounds 10 ounces, but she's her and her husband both work in hospitals. But I always told her she was special. I even had panic attacks when my kids were uh, young. So we get through, we go to the alcoholism. I had a problem with alcohol. Um, I remember one time, my ex-husband got me after a while. But I don't know if it was the alcohol or just him being a mean idiot. But one day, this is the same house that we live in town. He was always accusing me of, because he would come home and be drunk. He would accuse me of running around doing this and that. Like he thought that I forgot what the heck went on when I was drinking. Me, I never forgot. I knew what the heck was going on. I knew reality. I knew what the heck was going on. I didn't black out like a lot of people do. I knew what was happening. I knew he was a liar. But it always caused us to fight because he knew that was something that my mom had to go through, so he used it on me. And one day I got up. I was I think I was on the floor by the couch, in front of the couch, and I got up because I was angry, started getting up. He tossed a shot glass. It hit me square in the eye, right around, just as perfect as you could be. And then I remember it started doing red, and I couldn't see. Because this eye is lazy. I have very farsighted in that eye, but it's a lazy eye, so it can see, but as far as reading or anything, you just can't make it do that. This eye, um, was there was I don't know uh, what you would call it, but cut. In the back of the eye, it was cut, and it was moving, and it moved and moved and moved, and it is so very close to the seeing part to where I would have been blind. But I had to rush to the hospital, and they even read my ex-husband's rights and stuff like that. And I said no. They asked me if I was discharged. I said no, it's not just his fault, it's mine. And they got angry. I know they were angry because of the way I was treated in that hospital, because I did not have the cuffs put on him. And even the doctors that treated, there's no hope for you, your eyes are going to be that way for the rest of your life, They're not going to change. And that voice, you're going to surprise everybody. You're going to surprise a lot of people. And I have to have glasses to protect that eye, but I can see out of that eye. I just have to be careful. Their doctors are scared. The one I have now cares enough that he's got this eye at least being able to read the bigger numbers or letters, and he wants to be very leery of the other eye because of the cataracts. They have to do stuff on that, so he said he would get a doctor who knew what they were doing. But yeah, I almost went blind. Machine Monkey was talking about that. I didn't happen the same way that his did, but yeah. And then we moved. This is another part that reminded me of him. We moved out about 2 or 3 miles from town, probably 2 miles, into an old schoolhouse. That thing was so drafty, cold in winter. I mean, my ex-husband was a tightwad, and we had wood stove, and this place was drafty, and it didn't really even help. Freaking, I mean, especially when the dang thing during the night goes out. Holy moly! You have to be thankful for what you got as far as heat. my fingers would turn white, and they would get really numb. That's how cold it was. And so depressing. I think he did that on purpose. It was so depressing because he worked. See, he worked, at a prison, and he was gone. I hadn't seen the house. Like kids, too, And another thing, I raised my own kids because when he got home, they were sleeping. When they went to school, they were sleeping. So I raised my own kids. And, yeah, he's talking about, he called his home Green Acres. That's a freaking mind. That's why it made me think about it, because I lived in the house that was cold too. But that's in that house, very same house, I stopped drinking. I just, I could see Satan in my ex-husband. My oldest daughter was 7, and I was drinking and looked at her, and I prayed all the time that God would help me stop. But I wasn't listening, and he got angry at me. God, I'm talking about. He grabbed a hold of me and shoved me up in front of a mirror and said, "Look at that." And I told my husband, ex-husband now, that I wanted to go, I wanted to quit drinking. No, you don't. I said, yes, I do. I want to go to the hospital. No, you don't. I said, yes, I do. Um, I even called them. I even had the beer in my freaking hand. I called them. Went in there. I had to go and dry out for 3 days to regular hospital, and they always came in and asked me if I had shakes or whatever. I said no. They said, "You want some Valium or you want something to help you?" I said no. I didn't have shakes or anything. And they said that they wish more people were like me. Um, then I went to rehab for a month. That's the difference between me and Machine Monkey. I went to rehab, but they said I had 100% chance of getting through this and getting out and stopping it because I didn't put the blame on anybody else but myself, which is true with addiction. And when I got out, yeah, I had those things, but and like I said, the voice says, just turn your back on it, walk away. That's what you have to do. You have to walk away from it. It's just like sin. You sin or you get baptized, you just walk away from that sin. You turn your back on that sin. You turn your back on what Satan wants you to do. And you go the right path. You go the right way. You wake up and go the right way. And then we fast forward to 20 years ago. One of those, what I call demons. I wasn't drinking then. I haven't drank for about 40 years. I quit drinking. I quit drinking. Never wanted to. And then I was attacked by demons. I was a Mormon at that time, and you know, I this is when I got divorced, or was in this the divorce when started. And my ex-husband wanted me out of the house, even though he gave me the house, kicked me out. I'd gotten into a trailer. Um, and in that trailer, that's when it started. Because before I left, my husband told me to go to hell. I hope you go to hell, you committed adultery. And I moved to this trailer, and the voice told me again, pick the Bible up and read it. That's what I did. And people, I don't know why they do it. They get upset about that. They're supposed to be Christian, but they don't want to hear your side because their side's better. But that's the honest to God's truth. That's what happened to me. Don't leave it sitting there. And I didn't do it then. But the more the days went on, the more I started to do it. It was very hard because uh, the writing in the Bible is so done so strange that it's hard for me to read it. But I read it. I read it from cover to cover. But I had so many strange things like not going like I say. I had to just hear what it was a thing, a life lesson as to what is the precursor or what's going on today. Because my thing was about when it first started, it was aliens, and then stuff on my skin that I tried to wash off, but it wouldn't wash off. Like radiation or something, it wouldn't wash off. I tried to wash it off, even though there really wasn't nothing there. And I wasn't drinking. There still was not any um, strange things going on. And I turned on the radio, listened to it. And I heard a voice, man, a very scary voice. And I shut the radio off. See, I would watch TV before I moved in here. I never watched TV for a long time. And I turned the radio off because of that. There was a lesson to be learned. And before I moved out of there, I told the voice to turn the radio back on. That was all right. So I did. And I kid you not, the song that came on was American Pie. Because I listen to the old stuff. I mean, it's a lot better than the new stuff. But I moved to another small town not too far away. Lived in a place upstairs, which is very small efficiency, what they call it. I'd lived in foster care for a couple months. This is when I lived in foster care. For a couple months, I found a place. And I moved in this place that was upstairs. This was an old house. Probably ghosts in there or something. But anyway, yeah. I mean, the demons never let up on me. I mean, in and out of the hospital. I even escaped from a stupid hospital. If you call it escape, I mean, you could walk off. My daughter already called the cops on me. I don't know why it would fucking leave me alone. But one day, And this, one day I was walking when I supposedly escaped the hospital. Thought I was doing something great. I mean, where I lived, where this hospital was like 10 miles away, 10, 12 miles away. But I started walking home. I was still in this, it's a pretty large city. So I was, you know, getting there, not even halfway. And you just don't understand what it's like to have demons attack you, and demons attack you. You cannot think. I prayed and I prayed, and I'm not afraid of people who are sick with mental illness. I surround them. But I prayed and I prayed, and when I was walking home that day, it was kind of a dreary dang day in the first place. And I knew I had to find humility and be humble. So I got down on my hands and knees, right out in broad daylight, in the middle of, this big city, this main thoroughfare, praying the Lord's Prayer. And then it's hard because you got these things battling you. But that's why I had to become humble. I had to clear my mind. I had to be humble and find humility. It was the only way I was going to do it. Even though I did it all the time. But as I was walking home after I prayed, somebody picked me up. The car we used to own when I was younger. It took me to almost to, the city limits of what it was, the town I lived in. But there was a bridge, and he brought me to that. And I was almost home. And I was walking. I get to a railroad track, and this, kind of smell. Because, I smelt the smell. But it was a flowery smell, it smelled really good. Very pleasing, And I could feel the hand touch mine and wrap it around my fingers and my palm. And then I knew I wasn't by myself. It feels like you're alone sometimes. But know that you're not. And I never noticed this when for a long time I never really thought about it. But I was, thinking about that time, and I looked at my hand, and I had a scar from when I was a child that stood out on the palm of my hand. It was so thick, stood out. The sucker went away. It's gone. I don't know. You tell me that there's no Christ. Right in here. It used to be sticking way up, and now it's flat. That was from an M80 that blew up my hands when I was in the second grade. But that thing's gone. I get home. I forget my keys. At the place, that's just about the stupid thing you can do. So I knew somebody that had another set, so I had to walk back to this one place. She owned this business, walk back there and say, I don't have my keys, lock myself out. She knew something was wrong, but she didn't bring it up. But I get at the house, she tells me, or the apartment, she tells me, you know, why don't you take a bath? And it was kind of dreadfully out cold. You know, take a warm bath and like that. And she said, are you hungry? I said, yes. So, because she owned a deli, she brought me home, brought me a sub. I mean, she was the nicest person I ever wanted to meet. But, you know, as she was giving me that sub, it can't, you know, there, like I say, these Bible verses kept coming in. This is why the Bible's important. It said, for you've done it to the least of my brethren, you've done it unto me. As she was giving me the sandwich, and I kept seeing a rainbow on TV. And so people make fun of me, but it's not freaking funny. It means something. It meant something then, and now I see what it means. Then I come on, you know, there's just too much stuff that I'm a karaoke person. Um, Stuff like that. I do karaoke. Used to. And my son-in-law was in the military, so my daughter would take me with her when she'd go, and she's like her dad. She's always causing trouble for me. Always, she's always been that way. And she'd always start something in there and antagonize, you know, kind of pushing buttons, antagonizing you. And, you know, I knew because I could start feeling the tension and whatever because the anger people were getting and feeling. And it's just weird because I had gotten up and there was very, very heavy feeling in there. Got up to do the last song that I used to sing. You know, I can sing a lot of songs, but this one. And then as I was going over to the DJ, and then I had to stand there after I was done, and then I kind of take a breath, and I felt it. I felt that it was complete silence. I walked. It felt like a century, but to where I had to go to my table. But um, then there was that voice again saying, "Turn your back to it," meaning the people because they were angry. You know, turn your back. I said to my daughter, "Come on, let's go." We walked out, and I believe that the Lord intervened on something that was about to happen. You know, and I thank God for that. Every day, you know, I thank God that I even had to go through all that so I would be able to share it. You know, with my friend Machine Monkey, I want to tell him, you're not by yourself. You're not crazy. You know, there's nothing wrong with speaking truth to help someone else. if it hadn't been for God, or for Jesus, I wouldn't be here. There's several times that I should have died. But he showed me that I'm here for a reason. I'm here for a purpose. My ex-husband told me, he was mad because he didn't have a choice whether my youngest daughter or me lived or died. He said he would have chose my daughter and let me die. But you know what? That wasn't his choice. That was God's choice. You know, but what I'm telling you is that this fear that people have, Dottie, because I have it. I don't have it anymore. I've already been through hell. I don't have that fear anymore. I don't want anybody else to have that fear either. I thank Machine Monk for sharing this story, and it's very brave for a person to do that type of stuff. But don't ever feel ashamed of your accomplishments. Don't be ashamed of what you've done in your life and where you've come and where you are now. Jesus Christ sees us through a lot of things that we don't really realize until there's something that rings a bell in your head. But anyway, I hope Machine Mug, you don't think I'm trying to take your thunder, but he just made me think, that I was not by myself. But I wanted to tell him that I too almost lost my eyesight, but it was restored. I almost lost my life, but it was restored. Um, and the demon, the self, is what's happening right now because when it was dark out, I looked out and that would hit under my. That's where the demons are. In the dark. I mean, I'd sit in the hospital there, sitting by a man. I wasn't afraid of those people any more than I would be afraid of any normal person. Or what's normal anyway. But the man would mumble. This was in the lobby late. I sat by him, and I always felt bad for these people. He was mumbling, and then all of a sudden he said something. I really didn't, because of what was going on with me, didn't really think about it to recognize what he really said. But he spoke in plain English when the rest of the time he mumbled. I kind of wonder about some of these people that have these illnesses. And that's why I get mad, because people say bad stuff about them and this and that. But if you knew the mentally ill people in the day had to go through, they were experimented on. They're still being experimented on. It's wrong. They're freaking human beings too. People who live in foster care or any institutionalized government run junk hole. But anyway, like I say, I hope Machine Monkey doesn't think I'm trying to steal his thunder. It just brought me to the point where I wanted to try to show him it wasn't by himself because I lost my sight, almost lost my sight because of a stupid thing, stupid habit. But there's always hope. You have to look at that. There is hope. Hope in Jesus Christ. I know it looks hard right now. Believe me, I know it looks hard. But I don't fear. I don't fear it. I don't fear death either. I mean, with everything that they want you to try to do with all this stuff, the cocktail in your freaking arm and this and that. How long is life? Your life's not very long. What the heck's in that? Whatever. You don't have the faith. This problem. You have to step out in faith, turn your back on that whatever's bothering you. It's hard. You got to fight every step of the way, but you got to turn your back on it. But I'll stop jabbering because I keep going off on some other tangent. But I want to thank Machine Monkey for coming out and sharing his story. Like I say, don't ever be ashamed to just tell. It doesn't matter if people think you're, you know, what they think you are, crazy or whatever. I've been told that, so it ain't gonna bother me. Now you tell me these days, who in the heck's crazy, me or them? I have more sense than they do. I have more compassion than they do. I have more faith than they do. They don't care about faith. They just want to destroy. Just like Satan to destroy whoever can and take whoever can with him. But I'd like to say, God bless people. Just hang on to that hope. Pray. Pray every day. That He takes you quickly. So I'd like to say, God bless, and thank you, Machine Money, for sharing your story. Be kind to others. If you're not, God bless you, and peace.